Welcome to Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority, the lively and engaging podcast for business professionals who've always believed they have a book in them. I'm your host, Jillian Whitney. Join me as I chat with authors and industry experts from all around the world to explore simple strategies to write, publish, and leverage your business book. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or an employee, this podcast is for you. Woohoo! We're live once again on another Tuesday. I have an old friend, new friend. Old friend because I've known her for 4 years. New friend because we finally met today for the very first time. So it's very, very exciting. So I have Lisa de Caux in the house today from across the pond, coming in from England with the teapot in the background to prove it. So Lisa, before we get stuck in and start talking about our topic today, which I'm so excited about, can you please tell people who you are and what you do? And then we'll get stuck in.
So I'm Lisa de Caux. I am an editor and proofreader. I specialize in business books and fiction. I spent many years as a chartered accountant before I changed career, and now I get to embrace my degree in English Lit.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So what we're talking about today, I think this is such an important topic, is demystifying editing, what new authors must know. And you know, when I thought about, okay, who could I have come on and talk about this? I was so excited that you would agree to come and, share your wisdom and your knowledge with us, Lisa, because I think for so many aspiring authors, I don't want to call them would-be authors, aspiring authors, there's a lot of people thinking, I would love to do a book, but I'm intimidated that maybe my language skills aren't good enough. Or maybe they're thinking they have to go through a huge publishing house that has editors on staff, because if they self-publish, they don't feel they're confident to do their own editing, but they don't know how to hire an editor. It's like, oh, it's this big mystery thing. It's like miracle happens. I have an editor and they make it nice. So this is such a valuable topic. And I really want to kind of hone in on new authors today because they're the ones that I want to help the most. So we could do that, Lisa. That would be good.
We can. I've worked with quite a lot of first-time authors, and I really like to work with first-time authors because it's their precious book. It's precious, precious, precious book, and it's such a big deal to be able to support that. So yes, absolutely. Let's talk. What you think? What do you think they need to know?
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the different kinds of editing, because I think that that's one thing that people are like, is an editor like going to totally, like, are they just kind of looking at my grammar and my punctuation? Are they looking at my book and saying, okay, this is out of context here, like this doesn't make sense? Like there's probably different layers of editing. So can we start off with that?
Absolutely. I think it's a really good place to start. This is a really good place to start. Okay, so there are a number of different layers of editing. You're absolutely right. I think what we'll do is we'll frame it around the different drafts of the book that you go through. So we start. You've got your first draft. It's all out of your head on the page. Fantastic news, but this is where it starts, and it starts with self-editing. So you've got to start with self-editing. You do that first. And then you move on to developmental editing. Could be done with a developmental editor, could be a book coach, could be beta readers. It's all about structure. It's all about making sure that everything is in the right order, it's in the right place. So chapter 9, maybe that should be chapter 2, about moving these things around. But once you've got that done, then you are at your final draft, and you are ready for line and copy editing. Line and copy editing is where you get into the nitty-gritty, and this is at sentence level. So you're looking at consistency, accuracy, readability, every single line of book. How do these all work? And this is the first time where you can start looking at spelling, punctuation, and grammar. All of these things coming together. So things like repetition as well. It's all about readability now, line by line. this gets you ready for going to typesetting and design. And this is where a typesetter or designer will make your book look like a book. It's very, very exciting times. And what's really important about this stage is this is where you get your proofs. So you will receive proofs, usually in PDF, and they look like the pages of a book. They look like it's going to look when it's printed or when it's published. You send that to your proofreader, and your proofreader, at this point, it's the last stage of editing, and your proofreader isn't going to make any changes to your words. They're not going to suggest, oh, why don't you rephrase it? They're not going to do that. What they are going to do is things like, I don't know, check page numbers are in order. They're going to check that the book page all lines up straight, both sides, because you do sometimes get random indents, and you don't want your page to look unexpectedly wiggly. And they will look for, obviously they'll look for spelling typos and all those kind of things that happen. But this is about how your book will look on the page. That's about for that now, the time that you're proofreading. Then what you're going to do is send that back, get all your proofreaders' changes, if you accept them, put through by your typesetter designer. Still more proofs, and you probably have an advanced reader copy that you might send out to a group of people. And that's one thing I will say, the more eyes you can have on your book, the better, because there's more chance for any little infelicities to be found. And that's how you can look at it. My final top tip, as your last sort of proofs come in, check the spine of the book. People on the front cover and they focus on the back cover. Check the spine of the book. It's one of the most easily seen places on the book. If you've got it on your shelf, it's a spine that people see and people forget to check it. So make sure that you do it. My final top tip. And then you're publishing. Very excited, then you're publishing. So that was a whistle stop tour.
That was awesome. Okay. So imagine I'm sitting here, I'm at the, I've written my book, I'm at the self-editing stage, and I say, okay, maybe I've just written my book. Okay, I've got it all out of my head. It's onto the page. I feel really good. At what point should I be thinking about, okay, I got to get an editor. So how much time? Because I know a lot of people will say, okay, I want to launch my book on, January 15th, and that's going to be my launch date. And here it is today, October 22nd. So I got to figure out that timeline, because everything in the process, like you just with your whistle stop tour, there's a lot of days to this, and pause and this and pause and order your proofs and wait for the proofs. And, the type, the proofreader and yada, yada, yada. So when do I need to be thinking about getting the editor? Is it once I'm done or once I'm writing? When do I do that?
Whilst you're writing, because if you finished in October and wanted to publish in January, that's a really tight deadline. That's a really tight turnaround. And if you look at, depending on what editor you choose that you want to work with, like for instance, I wouldn't be able to fit you in if you wanted to go between October and January. I book in advance. I'm booked up for quite a few months in advance. So yeah, it's just, but that is just the way things work. So if you want to work with a particular editor, start talking to them whilst you're writing the book. Don't leave it to chance. Because otherwise, what's really disappointing, and I've had this before, is where an author comes to you and they say, "Oh, I really want to work with you," and you go, "I know you from LinkedIn, and I really love to work with your work, but I'm gutted. I'm not free. I can't meet your deadline," and it's one of those things where you're just like, "Yeah, I'm completely gutted." And the author was disappointed because they want to then, go and try and find, somebody else. So pick, as soon as you can, have that conversation as soon as you can, whilst you're writing the book, before you've come to the end of your first draft, go for it.
And see, that's one of the things that I think we don't know. That, it's like, I think intuitively we think, okay, I'll write the book and now I'll shop for an editor to start yesterday because I want to meet my deadline. But in reality, that's like, you could find the best editors in the world and they're like, yeah, but you're going to go to the back of the line because I've got 3 other manuscripts ahead of us. So that's golden. That's the golden tip of the day. Think about getting your editor. So, okay, how would people shop? Well, first of all, how do we I don't want you to have to disclose your prices or anything, but if I am a first-time author and I got to figure out how do I budget in for the editor and all the other things I'm doing, I got the publisher and I got the proofreader and yada, yada, yada. So if I have to budget for that, how is it usually done? Is it by the project? Is it by the word? Is it by the hour? How do I figure out what I would pay an editor for my manuscript?
You'll find that you'll hear me say it depends a lot because it does depend. It depends really on the editor that you choose. So choose your editor. Like, for instance, I charge on a fixed fee basis. So I will quote for you and that will be the amount that you pay. That's it. It is as simple as that. And it's based on, for me, it's based on word count, a sample of the book that you've shared with me that I've worked through to work out how it works. How's the kind of turnaround time that you're looking for? So if you want it over a couple of months, that's easier for me to manage than if you wanted it in a week's time. So,
got it. That makes sense.
So it's a bespoke quote from me every single time. But this is why it's important to find an editor who suits you, because we as editors, we have a lot of different ways of working through this. Now, the Chartered Institute of Editing and Proofreading, of which I'm a professional member, they have minimum hourly rates that they recommend for you. But that's no use to you as a first-time author because you don't know how many hours the editor will need. So you've got to go out there. And a lot of us editors, we do have like indicative prices on our websites, and you should be able to find some information. Have a look at my website. I've got some indicative prices to talk to. And other editors will be exactly the same. This is what it is about finding an editor who suits you so you can then follow through with them.
That makes sense. And also, too, are there country differences? Because, here you are in the UK and I'm in the United States. And so if I was to hire you, I'm probably strange because I'm Canadian. So Canadian, actually, we have British spelling. So like we're very mixed up. And so we're like half American, half English. It's crazy. But is that a difficulty for different editors when we're choosing an editor? Do we need an editor that's regionally based?
I think it depends. Because I work with American authors, and I work with British authors, and it's fine. We make it work. I'm okay with American English. Have been satisfied with my work, and it's a case of this is again we're back to you've got to find an editor who suits you. Because one of the things that to think about is the time difference. So, for instance, if I work with American authors, then generally we have to work out when's going to be the best time for us to have a Zoom call and to make it work, so it's earlier in the morning for them, later in the evening for me. It's fine. It just takes a lot of organisation, that's all. And I tend to I would do a lot by email when that sort of helps out there as well. And I have a questionnaire and things like that I share with my authors to get them to give me the information that they need to share. It's a case of making it work.
Right.
Again, we're always coming back down to this point. Find an editor that you want to work with, somebody who suits you.
I love that. So here's another question that's like somebody else actually asked me about this, and I said, okay, I'll ask it. So one of the other questions is, how do how do editors work with authors? Like I'm old enough to remember, red pens and all that sort of thing. And yet we're in a digital age. So I can't imagine that you're sitting there printing out my manuscript and you're going to sit there with your red pen and then you're going to, I don't know, mail it back to me or fax it or whatever. So I'm sure we're working in the digital age. So I'm thinking Word, track changes, Google Docs. What's the tech today, Lisa?
I suppose the sort of the industry standard is Word, and using Word track changes to work on. If you're talking about editing, if you're talking about proofreading, then we're probably talking about PDF, and you'd use standard Adobe markup tools. You can use BSI symbols, but that's become quite out of fashion. Which is a shame. I spent ages learning the symbols, but it's fallen quite out of fashion. And I think that mostly these days people use Adobe comment functions. Generally, that's how that works. That's for proofreading. But editing, it's Word and track changes. And it's interesting that you mentioned the red pen, because I actually have changed my track changes so they turn up in blue. Because I don't want my authors to see a page full of red. I don't want them to be worried. I don't want them to be nervous about it. I don't want them to see a page full of red, so they'll see, blue track changes from me instead.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's kind. You care about them, because I think that's the thing. It's like, we struggle to get our words down on paper, and we're fearful. We're fearful that someone's going to just, it's like that English teacher from fourth grade that's going to go, this is the worst thing I've ever read. There's that natural thing where we need someone who's nurturing and caring.
Yeah, that's what you need. It's a scary thing to share your book, baby, that you have. It's precious to you. You've spent so much time and energy on it. You want to share it. You want it to be received gently and shared in a good way. And I'm going to spend a huge amount of time with your book, so I need to connect with it. I need to bond with it. So it's that kind of connection that you build between your editor and your author. It's a thing that you share together.
I love that. So we have a couple comments. So I'm going to bring in some comments. So Tina Jarvit is coming in from Belgium, or Brussels, Belgium today. Hi, Jillian and Lisa. Does one need to pay an editor? So yes, I guess yes. If we would. But I guess she's saying, how, I guess, is the payment in advance? Like you even talked about, if I wanted to reserve you, would I need to put down a deposit to hold? Like, how does the payment work?
Yeah, and this is another, it depends on which editor you choose. But from my point of view, so I will ask for a deposit to secure the time in my diary and make sure that if you booked, if I tell you booked November is yours. I'm not sharing that with anybody else. No, it's Jillian's.
Got it.
It works like that. And then, so pay a deposit, probably pay an advance at the start of the edit. Would pay, I think it's 50% at the end of the edit. When I send you the edit back and you've received it, and you can look at it and say, yep, satisfied. So it's a stage payment for me.
Okay. That makes sense. And
also, I'm happy to work out I'm running a monthly payment plan with a client at the moment, because you just got to be flexible. Or for me, anyway, I've got to be flexible to work with people. And again, it depends on the editor. You've got to have the conversation with your editor.
That's right. And then just as so, if I give you a manuscript and you go through and you say, okay, this is all that needs to be changed. So then I go and I make those changes. Do I then resubmit it back to you, or am I sort of on my own at that point?
No, you wouldn't resubmit it back to me. If you wanted to, absolutely. And I've had those arrangements with authors before where, I'll do the edit, send it back, they send it back. It depends on how many rounds of editing that
Got it.
Obviously, that increases the time, increases the time that I spend with it. usually I'll work on the basis of one edit and done. And I will ask questions in the edit, but I don't expect the answers. These are questions for the author to consider and for them to be able to think about. All right, is Lisa right about that, or can I just ignore her?
Right. Because sometimes it could be just sometimes this would be. But I understand you're telling a story here, so maybe you want to use this kind of language, or something along that line. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay, good to know that. Jeff Young is here. He says author, or should I say editor. Jillian and Lisa, and I love it. Namaste. And Jeff is always so supportive. I just love when he shows up, and he just had a book out himself recently. But it's so nice that it's like the editing of any book, whether you're self-editing or you're hiring a professional editor, that is where, there was a wonderful quote once, and I don't even remember who said it, but it was something along the lines of, it's what's gets taken away. It's like you start with something, but then to really polish it, it's what gets taken away. So the editing refines something, just makes it so much better. I think it was Mark Twain. I'll have to go find the quote now because it was a good quote. But it just goes to show you that it's the editing really can bring something, make it so much clearer. So good.
Well, we try.
Yes. And Karen is here. Greetings from New York. So Karen's coming in to us today from New York. So we're getting all the country in. Jeff was from Ohio. We have Marcia. She is here from Washington, D.C. She's in the political realm of it today. It's like poor Marcia. It's like so much going on in the United States with our politics. So hi from Washington, D.C., Jillian and Lisa. Thank you for being here, Marcia. We love it. And Jeff says, Lisa, what's your top tip to use for us to do a proofread of our own book before giving it to an editor? Oh, what a great question, Jeff.
It is a cracking question. My top tip for self-editing is always read it out loud. Do it slowly. Read it out loud. If you read it out loud, that will pick up all sorts of things. And if you've sort of said, I don't know, turn it off, you'll hear the two it's, and you'll delete one of them. So it's your I often say this one is that your ears might hear something your eyes miss.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I know, and it actually takes so long. It actually takes so long to read. Like it's amazing. You're just like, how long is this book? But by doing that, you're right. It's if you're tripping while you're saying it, it's like you got to do some rewording there.
Yeah, give it away. This is my top tip.
Yep. So we have Debbie Johnson here. Hi from California, East Bay, or Cali, East Bay. So I'm assuming it's California, but it might not be. I don't know. Cali, East Bay. I don't know where that is. But we're glad you're here, Debbie. So thank you for joining us. So Lisa, here's a question that I'd love to just get your personal opinion on. You get a client, and what are the things that you're like, oh, I wish, here's the errors that like, I wish I could tell them, don't do this. Like, what are the things that people come to you and you're just like, oh,
I think there are, I suppose, comma splices. Everybody has comma splices. It's just a thing, because the way that we speak when we are communicating verbally, you can almost hear the comma splices. You can hear people use a comma when you really need more robust punctuation. But everybody, I don't know anybody who doesn't comma splice.
Okay,
it's a thing. That is my top thing. Yeah.
Okay. And then, that was probably the biggest one. Sort of, what are those biggest errors, and maybe, and then also, how long does it take? Like if I give you, say it was a 30,000 word manuscript, right? Just something that size. So that's like about 150 pages. Once it becomes a book, depending on what trim size and all that jazz. Yeah. But how long would you take before you turn it back to me, just on average, just so that somebody could figure out for their timeline?
Probably at least a couple of weeks. and that's if I'm going at it, a couple of weeks at least.
Okay. No,
I mean, it's one of those things that, probably turn it around faster. It might take, it depends depends on the writing and the style of the writing. And if if your words are kind of littered around tables, if they're in captions, if you've got images, all of those things really slow things down. They really slow it down. But if it's just the straightforward words, a couple of weeks.
That's good to know. And again, I think that the more people are aware of the editing process, so now we've clarified that, you got to build some time into your deadline, your whistle stop tour to get your book published on that day. So you need to account for this amount of time in your editing, but then also you want to book in early to make sure that time is set and waiting for you, which is good because then as writers, you're writing towards a target date of maybe you want to have your book done a week or so before you're ready for the editor so that you've got that time for the self-editing and, just sort of those last.
I had an author that I was working with earlier this year, did the edit. I think the edit was in January or February, and she's published now, which is great. But what she used my edit as that kind of deadline. She's like, yep, I booked Lisa. I'm definitely have to make sure that I've finished my my draft is ready because I booked Lisa. And she used that as a kind of a way to keep herself on track.
I love that. Makes you accountable. It's like, okay, that's the deadline, as opposed to seeing the launch date as the deadline. See your date of when you're getting to the editor as the unmovable time. I love that. Okay, Debbie says California, yes. Sorry. Yeah, it's like you just never know. It's like I'm not good on geography. It could be an island somewhere. It might be an island I'm not even aware of. So it's always good to know. Thanks for letting us know, Debbie. Oh, we got Michelle B. Griffin here, and she says hello, Jillian and Lisa. Yay! And she says this is an important topic. The editing is the most critical part after the ideation and the outlining. Oh, absolutely. So true. So true. Editing is everything. So Debbie says, yes, I do get a bit confounded by commas. I feel like I use them to an excess at times. As for semicolons, however, I detest them.
A lot of people do. And I think a lot of people worry more about semicolons than they really need to. It basically you are separating clauses with a semicolon, and sometimes that really robust bit of punctuation is really helpful for the reader. Because that's what punctuation is for. It's all about guiding your reader to where you want your reader to be. You want them to get your message, and sometimes you need that robust punctuation. Oh, things I love to talk about, robust punctuation.
I love it. And it's so funny. It's like I wanted to just ask you this, privately in front of the entire world here today. If do you ever take off your editor's hat? Like it's like when you're reading a LinkedIn post, you sit there going,
No, not.
There's a split infinitive. It's just
no, totally. And just briefly, totally fine with split infinitives. I like to boldly go. But yeah, no. I mean, the truth is that we all casually type, and that's okay. And the truth is, because of who I am, I tend to casually type as with the best punctuation I possibly can.
Right.
But it never bothers me. Because, I know that you just, people are just typing. That's okay. Carry on. It's fine. Everything is fine.
I love it. And it's so funny because when I was preparing our the post to schedule this live today, I must have gone over my grammar and my punctuation about 50 times because I went, Lisa's coming on my show. I cannot afford to make a mistake. So I was making the thumbnail for our live, and I looked up and I did one final, sort of like how you said, don't forget to look at the spine. I looked at everything on my thumbnail and I went, I spelled October wrong. And I realized I'd spelled October wrong. So I fixed it. And then I laughed because my thumbnails, I just duplicate from the one before, which means every other thumbnail this month, I spelled October wrong. So I went, oh no, I went, happy days, I'm not perfect. But it was just like, okay, so I finally got October right, but it was just so funny. And it was just like, okay, we can try everything. I blew it on the thumbnail. And then I told this to my husband, and he goes, nobody's even going to notice. Don't worry.
It's fine. But, I wouldn't mind. It's fine. It's fine. I get upset about these things if I do it myself. But if you do, it's fine. It's totally fine.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so we have reached the end of our 30 minutes today. Always goes way too fast, way too fast. You have shared so much knowledge today. I really, really appreciate it. I think I have learned something. I'm sure everyone who is watching has learned something, as are people that are going to be listening in on the podcast. This has been a little bit of a masterclass. So thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing all this knowledge. And I'm just wondering now, as we kind of like head out the door, is there any kind of final words of wisdom you'd want to leave everybody with before we say goodbye?
I suppose the key, I put this on, and it still went off anyway. Final words of wisdom, just throw your mobile phone out. No, final words of wisdom, always get as many eyes as you can on your book, because the more eyes that see it, you've got more chance of picking up any infelicities. That's what I'm going with. Yeah.
I love it.
And read it aloud. Read it aloud.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. And we will see everybody back next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you could leave us a review. It helps other aspiring authors discover our podcast. To learn more about writing, publishing, and leveraging your business book, visit my website at easypeasybooks.com.